I would like to invite Konstantin Reznik. Kon, please come up here. Also, you guys please welcome them. Alex Unkudovic, Andre Teleguz, and Matt War. Thank you guys. Come on up. We have questions, you have answers. So you'll get a mic in just a moment. But the goal of this panel today is to provide you with valuable and informative insights into how experienced business leaders navigate complex challenges. So just want to start with a quick intro question by asking, why are you in business? And who would like to go first? Which end do we want to start with?
Well, thank you for sharing your microphone with me. So generous. Why am I in business? So first time when I went into business, it was because I thought that God needed my money. I was praying, God, if you're going to bless me in business, you know how much I'm going to give? Never realized that God has all the money, all the resources, and He needed me, right? So the way I describe this journey is God had to break me. So I needed to learn how to trust Him. So when that happened, 2008 happened, and then after that, there's quite a good stretch of learning for me. And then, why am I in business now? I wasn't really praying in the business for business, and this happened, I think, in 2012. I was a youth pastor in the church, and we took a trip. There was this hurricane that came through our area and hit the Jersey Shore pretty hard. So I grabbed a bunch of guys, contractors, and we went out and partnered with this Christian organization that was providing materials for people to rebuild, and they were just looking for volunteers for the laborers. So we went in, and I saw this guy walking on the street and with kitchen door samples. I do kitchens, so I struck a conversation, shared the information, the contact info, and just we were just helping people there. About a year and a half, when I was really praying about my next steps, he shows up in my office where I used to work, and he's like, "Hey, remember me?" I go, "No." He goes, "I'm the guy you met when you guys were helping down the shore." I go, "Oh, yeah. He's like, "What are you up to?" I go, "I don't know, kind of searching, praying, what's next." He's like, "Let's meet." So, long story short, he helped me get into business, and that's how current business of 10 years has started. God completely opened up the doors that I didn't know existed, right? So for anyone that's in here thinking, man, what's my next steps, right? Really search to have a good relationship with God, because you don't know what God can do through you. You don't know what type of opportunities are out there. So currently I'm just following. This process has brought me to the place where I completely surrendered to God. And it's a long story. Maybe someday I'll get to share it. But I remember when I said, God, from now on, everything that I do, it's going to come from you, because I've exhausted everything that I've done myself and it didn't work. So I'm just living in what God had the way God opened up the doors and gave the opportunities to serve. And at that point, I was a different person as a minister, a different person as a Christian, as a son of God. So that was pretty special. Long answer, sorry.
Perfect. Let me add a second part to this intro question, because there could be somebody sitting here who, after the last session, Vito said, hey, it's a calling. So what if somebody feels called to business, or they feel a tug that they need to do more, but they're not sure exactly where to start? So what would you say to a person? Are there qualities you need to cultivate, certain things you need to learn, what would be a first step for a person who wants to go into business? Could you add that as your second part? So why are you in business? And if somebody was coming in new, what would you say is their first step? Where should they start?
Well, I think it's a journey, right? It's not something that if you jump into business, you know how to do it. You become an instrument that gets polished for something, right? So for me personally, maybe to tag on to the answer of why I'm in business, I was actually questioning, why am I doing what I'm doing? We are in the hospitality design. We design restaurants nationally. And been doing that for a very long time, and I was always questioning, hey, so how am I serving God through this business? And I built this amazing big network, so God, I'm ready to work, how can I work for you, right? And, one thing we have to remember is God lives outside of time, right? So I might started my business 15 years ago, but maybe God is waiting for me to get ready to certain action and put me in position and to move me in position to then take action.
That's good. That's really good. Thank you.
Yeah, I would, and you mentioned it just a minute ago. My answer is really what Vito said earlier, is that I'm in business because I feel like that is a calling on my life in this season of my life. And I think entrepreneurship, it's a challenging enough situation and journey that if you can do something else, you should, right? Because it's hard, and you're gonna get kicked in the face an awful lot. So if you can just go to work for somebody and go home at 5 o'clock and get a paycheck every 2 weeks, you should do that. But most of us, we can't do that, right? There's just something in us that doesn't let us. And so I think that's how you know, like, if you can do something else, do it. If you can't, maybe you're called to this. And so with that, for that second piece of advice, I would say just be prepared that you're going to have tough days. It's really easy to see someone on social media, who, suddenly became successful. You didn't get to see the 10 years that it took them behind that, but just out of the blue, they're successful. And you think, oh, in 90 days, I'll be a millionaire. Like, this is no problem at all. Like start this thing or whatever. In reality, that's never how it works, even if it appears that way. And so I heard a quote not long ago that I think is appropriate for this. It said that the start is what stops most people. And I think the key is to just start and realize you're never going to be good at the beginning. If you think you're going to be good the first time out, you're kidding yourself. Be okay with failing and failing your way to success and going through the hard times, knowing that every one of them, like, this is what I do today is not the make or break for my life. It's just one more step. It's getting me closer. It's another rep at the gym. It's another day that's moving me toward that, down that journey.
Quick book recommendation: Entrepreneurial Leap by Gino Wickman. That's an amazing book. If someone is struggling to start a business or not, that book in the beginning will just try to discourage you, and then it will take you through different things that you have, qualities you have to run a business. Because guess what? You just said something very important: fail towards success. You have to fail, and most businesses fail.
When I got into business, I was not thinking of business as a ministry whatsoever. For me, it was, I'm a Christian, business is just what I do for a living kind of idea. What motivated me to get into business was I was in my early 20s, just graduated college, working as a software developer for a local company, and they gave me 2 weeks vacation. That was it, 2 weeks vacation, which was generous for someone who's just out of college. And I really like to travel on missions. I was doing it since I was a teenager, and I thought, wow, all I have is 2 weeks to go on missions and do some work. I can't live like this. And that was the biggest motivation for me. I want to do something that I can dictate the time and I can have flexibility. I didn't know at that time that meant working 80 hours a week and fitting mission trips and doing work during mission trips, but because entrepreneurship is difficult. But the realization that business is also a calling, entrepreneurship is a calling, came much later for me. It was not the initial motivation for me.
Thank you, guys. That was terrific insight. And could you say that name of that book one more time in case somebody wanted to write it down?
Entrepreneurial Leap by Gino Wickman.
Okay, you guys got that? Now, I do have another kind of personal question, but I'm going to hold it till the end, and you guys can think about it. How do you handle business and work and people stepping into business? How much time should they expect to before they're going to be able to pull back? So I'm going to leave that to the end, but kind of be thinking about that. It's a little bit more towards the personal life. But I want to jump into experiences with company growth. Let's talk a little bit about, have you experienced company growth? How did you handle it? You guys can feel free to answer questions, or you can skip specifically in this area if you feel that you have something you want to share, or you have a season where you grew and you needed to expand the team. How did you do that? So how basically share a pivotal moment when your business experienced rapid growth. What were the key decisions that contributed to managing it successfully, such as managing resources? When is it time to expand the team? How do you know what to allocate finances to? Who would like to take that one first? Has a lot in it.
Well, since no, I remember when my landlord gave me a 60-day notice to move the business. Yeah, it was fun. So I have a showroom, we have a warehouse, we assemble cabinets and so forth, computer systems and all. So it's pretty challenging. I think, I don't know what I'll say, and others will chime in. Just grabbing bull by its horns or facing the lion. I don't know which one is easier. You just, I don't know, you'll figure it out, right? I think when you have this gift, right, when the challenge comes, you'll figure it out, right? I love what Vito said. He goes into a meeting, doesn't know, what's the answer. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I like it. I mean, yeah, that's putting kind of my thoughts into words, right? Because a lot of times you go in and you don't know the answer. And then as you analyze, as you think, and somewhere pray inside, and the answer comes. So, yeah.
For me, it was, we started a company, and a year later, we're already doing $3 million in sales. It was really rapid, getting more projects, and had to hire people quickly. One thing that I realized pretty fast is I have to be honest with my clients. I have to be honest with the team, and just be real. If you're not sure how to solve something, you say, guys, we need to solve this problem. We have all these challenges, new growth. I need your help. Tell me, what do you think? What is the best solution? Kind of in a way being as a bit of a consensus finder with the team, but be more vulnerable and not try to be this entrepreneur who know it all, do it all, and I'm just going to tell everyone what to do. Get the gifting and talents of other people to work towards your business in that, especially in that crazy growth period.
I think in growth, you need to realize sometimes you can be at the bottleneck in the growth. Sometimes someone on the management team could be a bottleneck. When the company grows, a lot of times what happens is the growth outgrows the personnel, right? The person in one seat has one set of skills, and now all of a sudden, because of the growth, that position requires different skill level, right? And that person is not comfortable going to the next level. They're comfortable where they are, right? So all of a sudden, you have to find either a different seat on a bus or, solve the issue.
I can add a couple things. I think it's a fine balance of balancing what's urgent what's important but not urgent, what's urgent but not important, right? That quadrant of tackling things and finding time to work on the business. Although it's not an urgency today, but it is very important for you, and that's going to invest in the growth of your business, right? So for us, scaling business, that means repeating the success, the process, right? Why would a client hire us again for their next project to design their next restaurant? Well, they like the process and the results we achieved on the first restaurant, right? So I have to repeat that process. So for us, and I actually am going to talk a little bit about this on my session. I'm going to have a slide with a QR code about process mapping, right? You have to document your process. You have to capture your process, what makes your business successful, so you can repeat that again and again and again. And because when you're growing, you're not going to be able to touch that project every time now yourself, right? You're going to have to delegate. So if I'm delegating, is that process solid that I can step away and be confident that it can be repeated and the company can grow, right?
So from the first session, we learned about branding. Let's say everybody in here got their branding done. And then we learned about advertising. Let's say you guys launch your first advertising campaign, and we learn about having a good team. So we're about to experience this big growth, right? We launched a marketing campaign. Looking back, what is one lesson you learned from managing growth that you wish you had known? And what advice can you give to some of these business people who are going to go back and implement the things they learned today, and they're going to experience some growth?
My initial understanding was it's the hardest thing in businesses to find clients is to do more sales. What I realized later is that the harder thing is to build a team. It's the harder thing is the better the team you have, the more quality people you have, the faster and better you can grow, because they are the ones that would be reaching out to the clients and producing more sales. And going back, I'd be starting with core values probably from day one. I talked about it. Really work on building a team from day one. I mean, and that team will be what will propel the sales. Get the right people on the bus, and they will help you come up with the right sales and advertising and marketing strategy that will propel your business.
I can chime in on this too. Years ago, when I only had, 5 people working for me, I remember talking. By the way, he's the reason for a lot of my growth, because he reads a book, we have a phone conversation, we live like an hour and a half away from each other, and then I read the book, and then we discuss it, and then we grow. Anyway, he gave me this book, E-Myth, Entrepreneurial Myth, E-Myth, by Michael Gerber. I read that book when I had, just a few people working for me. And what it has done, it started shifting my mindset, right? And then years later, usually it takes a year to 2 years for a company or for the team to accept the changes, right? And move past the change, because changes are challenging usually on the team. I started self-implementing a lot of things. So in a growth, few lessons, Corse is right, building a team is really important. When I've started, I understood that processes in business is a must. I knew that at some point I want to build a business that will work without me, right? That I can be here and the business is functioning without me. That I can take a vacation and business is functioning without me. So I knew in order for me to do that, I had to implement processes and work myself out of the job, right? So I started implementing the accountability chart. That forced me to have clear roles for people. That in turn gave me clearer understanding of who I have to hire as the best person for the team for a specific job, right? So going back, I just see how my mind started, I had this mind shift, right? And that gave a lot of dividends later.
I think one of the things that I would say looking back is to recognize that growth will not solve problems. Growth will actually create more problems. And I think especially for small business owners, maybe if you're a solopreneur, you're very early on in the journey, you can think, well, if I just hit whatever, $10,000 a month or $1 million a year, like whatever those initial, milestones are, then that'll solve all my problems and life will be good. And we don't realize growth is just exchanging problems, right? Your problems just get more zeros on the end of them, or more, bigger teams or whatever. And so that's not a bad thing, but I think it's just a reality check to recognize growth is not going to make my life better necessarily. It's just going to change some things, and sort of appropriately understanding what growth does for your business.
So good. Thank you. Andre, this question is for you, but guys, feel free to chime in. How have you had to adapt your business model in response to the growth? When we spoke earlier, you mentioned how when your contract ended at one point, you realized customers were experiencing a shortfall after you left, so you kind of picked it up. Why did you decide to do a whole nother business rather than just growing the existing business? Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe kind of backtrack and explain.
Am I on? Yes? Okay. All right. So when we design restaurants, we design different level of complex restaurants. It might be at a stadium. We did San Francisco 49ers not long ago. Sorry. We do higher education, so colleges, universities, country clubs. We do a lot of complex projects at hospitals. Mayo Clinic is a big client of ours. So quite often, the CEOs and presidents of those organizations say, hey, we want the top-notch, latest and greatest, right? That usually requires a lot of talent, a lot of chefs, a lot of execution, a lot of new technology, innovation. And we design it. I mean, we're being hired, we're delivering that vision. But what we found often is when we will finish a project and walk away from a project, is we're like looking at that current staff in place is like, they're going to fail. They're never going to operate it the way we envisioned it. They're not going to execute it. They're not going to be able to deliver that menu. They're not going to find the staff to do it. And it pained, it hurt us. It's like, wow, we did so much. We took these amazing photo shoot, pictures. It's on our website, but it's gonna fail. So we kept looking at that. It was like, what can we do with that, right? So we hired a couple chefs, and we were thinking, okay, we're gonna provide operational consulting. We're gonna extend our services because our contract ends after the construction is open, and we walk away, right? So we wanted to offer those services, and we just had a great opportunity. The question was, the balance was, do we learn how to do all of that ourselves and take, year 2, 3, 4, 5, or do we acquire a company that's already doing that? So we went the other route. We actually had a great opportunity. Somebody was planning on an exit strategy, so we acquired that company and able to seamlessly provide 10 years of that experience to our clients now, and provide operational consulting. It's like a subscription service. You can hire us on until you're comfortable operating the restaurant yourself. So it was a great investment.
So from what I heard, you kind of needed to do some calculation and say, hey, if we were to do this in-house, how long is it going to take? What are the resources required versus just buying out somebody else that's already offering that? And how did tell us the process, how did you calculate that price? How did you know that you could afford it, or what was your thinking? Can you share a little bit with that?
Well, having started a few businesses myself before, and I operate three businesses now, and I know what it takes to start a business. I know what building that team, everything that Constantine says. Actually, I was Constantine's partner in that other business that we sold. And it takes a lot of time and effort and energy and resources, and time is money, right? It's years of perfecting that process and learning yourself. So you put value, you start putting dollars to that time, and you're looking at your time. It's like, hey, my time is limited. One of the exercises that we recently done, you look at your lifeline, you realize that, hey, I'm going to be X amount of years so on. There's so much time left in my life and my career. what can I achieve yet, or what am I destined to do, and where I'm going to spend that time, right? So for me, the resources of calculating that, hey, it's going to take us 5 years probably to get a good presence in that market, to have a good name. Well, I don't have that. I want to provide that tomorrow, right? So we did just some basic math and decided, hey, it's worth the whatever we paid for that company.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. We talked about growth. Now, a lot of people may have or will experience a time when the market goes down or things are not as favorable, or maybe they've tried something and they've made a mistake, lost a lot of money, and they're going through a crisis. How does your leadership style need to adapt when shifting from normal operations to crisis management? Can you discuss the communication strategies that are crucial for the internal team, like employees, and your external team, customers, vendors, things like that?
What Vito was saying earlier really spoke to me, because that's also my mindset in that kind of crisis. So we went through several significant cash flow crises. One of them almost took us out. I was laying in bed thinking, okay, we're done. We're pretty much bankrupt. And I was thinking of all the people who would not get paid if we went bankrupt. I couldn't live with that, I thought. So what I realized, and this was the strategy that I adapted, I called it face the music. Don't hide from problems. Don't hide from vendors. Don't hide from people that you owe money. So I would have my VP of Finance give me a report of aging account payables. This week, these are all the bills due that we cannot pay. It's a significant cash flow problem. I would not wait until the bills are past due. I would pick up the phone and call the owners of those companies and say, hey, Bill, I know your bill is due. We owe you money this week. Give me some more time. I'm facing some cash flow issues. You will get paid. We had one company that we owed a lot of money. It's a pretty big corporation, and I consistently, and we just couldn't pay them. It was big bills. I ended up going over there to their office and just showing up at their office. It was a different state, and they were so surprised to see me. They're like, usually when people owe us money, they hide from us. They don't answer the phone. You're here yourself. I said, I'm here. I'm not hiding from you. I owe you money. You will get paid. This is my promise. Just give me some more time. Let's work it out. And we worked it out. So face the music is what I always told myself. It's not the most pleasant thing. And it's best to plan your business that you don't have those moments. But in the moments of crisis, do not hide from people. Do not hide from problems. Speak to them. It's much better than trying to run away and people hire lawyers and try to go after you.
Now, would that scare employees? If they find out, my boss said we're having these cash flow issues, would that make your team want to jump boat?
That was also my fear a lot, but I realized employees, if they like the company, they tend to be loyal with the company even through the thick and thin moments. Some may jump ship. Majority of them will decide to stick it through with the company.
I can add at our business retreats, we do this exercise where we write out business lifeline, right? So basically you write down significant business events that happened in your life. Well, there's a 0 line and then plus 10, minus 10. So we started the business, that's a dot. Cash flow problems, that's a dot. Anyway, so it creates this diagram of ups and downs. And me just observing business people going through that exercise is, this phrase burned into my memory. Alex Shevchenko was in our church, I don't know, last year sometime, and he had the seminar, and he's like, crisis is a gift. He's like, you guys have to realize that crisis is a gift. as much as I didn't want to agree with him, it's true. So during these business exercises, we analyze the turning points, which are usually the low points. And here's the thing: usually there would not have been a high point if there was not a low point. Because in these low points, in these crises, we all grow. So your question was, how do we grow leadership? My first answer is hope we don't have to change ourselves as leaders, right? Hopefully we've done good job leading till the crisis. But most often than not, when the crisis comes, you see where you have to improve, right? When Vito said, he was persistent, right, and loud and whatever, and then he had to change, something clicked. I've had a similar journey, right? So, but crisis is a gift.
I love that. Grow. You hit a crisis. How does your leadership style change? You grow. You improve yourself. Thank you so much. You guys, do you have anything you wanted to add about going through a challenge, Andre?
Well, when staff leaves, it's always a crisis, right? Especially when you're busy and when you're growing and you think like everything is smoothly going, right? So how to manage some of that crisis? Recently, we had one of our project managers who worked for us for about 8 years decided to actually change his career, and it's we thought that post-pandemic, that new term that came out, the Great Resignation, right? It's like, what is that, right? We thought we survived that. We thought that didn't touch us because during the pandemic we didn't lay anybody off. We kept everybody on. We were able to go through it together. And then right after that, this resignation at the tail end hit us. We lost 5 people, and it was just career changes. People were like, hey, I'm just done. I want to do something else in a different industry. So after going through 1 or 2 or 3 of those, we're like, time out. I'm losing all that investment and time that I put into these people, and I trained them personally. I mean, I started with them 8 years ago. I trained them one-on-one. Right now, I don't have time to train the replacement. My business is too big. So I made a deal with the last project manager. I said, listen, I'll give you a bonus. I'll give you a really nice bonus, but if you sit down and map out everything that you do, visual, graphic, step-by-step process. I'm going to meet with you every day. At the end of the day, you do this, you're going to have a healthy bonus before you leave. And he did that. And that was the best investment I did in my company before anybody left the organization. Because now training the new person, it was phenomenal. And actually attracting the new candidates was even phenomenal. I pulled it up during the interviews. I was showing them, listen, you're going to be doing this and this. It was no questions what the person was going to do. It was all there. They're like, wow, you are the most organized organization. I want to go work for you. So it was a very, very kind of eye-opening situation for us.
Crisis turned into a blessing. Yes. And you can't put a dollar amount on that, right? Well, how about this? If somebody comes and wants to do a Facebook ad, or they're expanding or product launch and they're putting money into something, when is enough enough? When do you pull back the project? When do you expect to see a return? Is there a time frame? Is there a dollar amount? Is there a percentage where you're like, okay, this is not working, I got to pull back? Can you?
Yeah, I think the terms that I use for what you're describing are this tension between when do I persevere and when do I pivot, right? Perseveres. I'm going to keep going down this path even though I'm not seeing the results, or we've gone far enough down this path, we've got to pivot. And we have these conversations, all the time with business owners. A lot of times it's when they come to us because whatever they're doing in marketing up to this point isn't working, and they know they need to pivot. And so I think, regardless of the industry, regardless of the project, regardless of the dollar amount, you're always going to face those moments. And I think, there's, depending on the niche or the industry or your systems and processes, there's probably different grids you can put people through. But for the context of this group, I think this really is where we have to lean into the voice of the Holy Spirit. Because sometimes we're going to pivot when it doesn't make sense to anybody else that we're pivoting. And sometimes we're going to persevere when everybody else is like, you are crazy. Like, you've got to change course. And so I think, there's not a good business metric for that necessarily that would be universally applicable. I'd say for this group, just leaning into the Holy Spirit is huge, because we're going to do stuff that just doesn't make sense sometimes. Foolishness confounds the wise, right?
I just read this book recently by, forget who's the author was, but he was talking about making decisions. And he was sharing about his decision process in business. He's like, I have 4 steps. Number 1, I pray. Number 2, I consult other people that have the knowledge in whatever I'm experiencing. Number 3, I do pros and cons. And number 4, I wait on the Lord. So I remember reading it, and I was like, I've got to, like, he's put process in words that I've sometimes used. I'm like, man, this is so powerful, because you're right. We make foolish mistakes sometimes. I think a lot of times when you realize that you've done a mistake, act quickly on it. Don't delay, right? Stop the bleeding.
Kind of want to spend a little more time on this, if it's okay. I want to hear from you guys too. Now, want to start a project, want to do something. How do I know? Like, let's say I've prayed about it. I'm thinking about a number, but things aren't making sense. I mean, do we wait 3 months for a marketing campaign? Do we wait 6 months? Do we make a year? Because sometimes, if you wait too long and you're not being real. So sometimes the driving factors are not reality, or sometimes you can have a belief that's not backed by research or backed by reality. So for those of us who are still learning to hear from the Holy Spirit, who maybe aren't confident whether the Holy Spirit has spoken to us or not, is there a constraint in terms of, like, how much percentage of my profits should I be reinvesting back in the business? Is there a number from your experience that you go back into, or is there a time frame where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this marketing project 3 months. If I don't get anything in return, I'm stopping it, and I'm going to pivot to the next one. Is there something more tangible that from your experience that you would actually practically use just from sound research or experience?
She's saying we can't play the God card on this one. We have to.
Well, I think being the first generation business entrepreneurs, we're still business entrepreneurs, right? Doesn't matter how long I had the business, I'm still an entrepreneur in heart. And if I'm in charge, I'm going to spend money if I see ideas and new opportunities and new ways of doing, especially my topic's going to be on AI. Well, I'm investing a lot into AI because I see a vision. I have calculated that. I believe in it. I see immediate return, immediate benefit. So we allocated at least, I would say, 5% of our revenue to that because we believe in it. We allocated a full-time employee in our company just to concentrate on AI implementation because I believe in it, right? Am I going to be wrong about it? No, I'm not going to be wrong about it because it's my decision. I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm investing in my business because I see and I compare. What I look at is I look at the historical evolution of business and the things that happened, right? So I'm in the design business. I remember and I see pictures of architects where they used to draw plans by hand, right? Okay, then Autodesk came out, and then Revit came out, which is BIM, Building Information Modeling. We were actually the first consultant in the industry 15 years ago to do everything in 3D, okay, using BIM. At that time, industry was saying, hey, the industry is not ready for it. But we had full-time employees in our office sitting, modeling families. It's called families. Like a chair would be a family. A table is a family, right? In this building information modeling. We invested because those manufacturers didn't have those families, those components, 3D. But we invested in it because we've seen that's going to make us faster. It's going to make us produce more faster. And actually it did. The people that were using AutoCAD 2D design, their offices would have to been 2-3 times bigger than my staff in office doing the same amount of work. Okay, so at that time, so I'm looking back and seeing how history repeats, and that's for me the same. Well, right now is I'm going to invest in AI because AI is going to make me 3 times faster than my competition. So you have to kind of identify and relate to your industries and see maybe how the history is repeating, and find those niches and be able to invest in those niches.
The problem that I see with a lot of entrepreneurs is we tend to chase a lot of shiny objects. A new thing comes along, let's do that, and we have things that have been working for us marketing wise, but it become boring. And here's a new platform, and we just abandon what's been working because it's too boring, it's too tried and true, and we chase after shiny objects all the time. So one image that haunts me a lot, you've probably all seen it, is this guy is digging a mine, right? And before he gets to the diamonds, he just turns around and quits. It's been too long. Sometimes with marketing, it's maybe your scale is not right. Maybe you need a bigger scale because at this scale, the return on investment is not right. I mean, there's a lot of things before you abandon the project. You really have to ask yourself, or maybe your scale is too big, or maybe you have to make some tweaks, but don't necessarily abandon the whole project. Aside from, the God card, like you're saying, I was gonna say, trust your God, as the world would say, or trust the voice of the Holy Spirit. But as far as the world metrics, that's don't chase the shiny objects. Don't abandon the thing just because there's a new big thing, and really be careful about your resources when it comes to marketing, especially before you quit.
I think that's a lot of truth in that. I think I'm guilty maybe from software. I love software, right? So is there a new project management platform out there? Is there a new CRM, right? But you're investing so much in the other, and then I actually changed our project management and the CRM software 3 times in our company, and it was painful. Everybody hated me for that, but sometimes I do, even right now, I discover, I wish I went with that one, right? But I have to hold myself back as an entrepreneur and no, I cannot do this to my employees. They're going to kill me. They're going to walk out, right? So I do relate with that, Constantine. It is dangerous.
I want to add something about Andre. So we had offices on the same floor, and I was exploring switching our company to Office 365 from Google Workplace for our emails and everything. So I tell him, have you seen Office 365? On Friday. On Monday, I learned he switched his whole company to Office 365. I come in and he's like, yeah, my emails are still migrating. I never switched, actually. And now I learned, I think you're switching back to Workplace now.
I think this is a good thing to highlight, because for most of us, I think we don't realize, whether it's with marketing or with growth for our businesses in general, in most cases, it's going to take longer and cost more, whether it's money or people or energy or whatever, than you think it's going to initially, right? Because we get excited and we're all ramped up, and it's just going to take longer and cost more than we think. And in that process, when we didn't get the result we wanted in the time frame we wanted or with the budget we wanted, I think that's where the shiny object really becomes attractive, right? So I can get 90% of the way in, but it's 20% more than I thought it was going to be, and so then I abandon it and move to something else. And again, there are good times to abandon strategies or softwares or campaigns or whatever. What I end up talking to my clients a lot about is not stopping before we've seen enough data that would warrant stopping. Right? Because sometimes a lot of times the stopping comes in a frustrated moment. It's an emotional response. It's not always a data-driven response. And as mature as we all are, sometimes our emotions mislead us.
And I think there's a season for everything, right? So I remember when we switched to the 3D software, the BIM, Build Information Modeling software. I came from Miami from a conference where I seen it, and literally I went straight to my office that weekend, installed that program on every computer. Monday we had a meeting, right, and said, hey, check out what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna design moving forward, right? But at that time I only had 10 employees, right? Try to do that now, that would be insane with the amount of projects. We have about 200 active projects nationally in North America between the two countries, and that would be detrimental to the business process, right? So there's a season for everything, right? Is it the right time to do that switch, or do you do it differently later?
So I like how you said that sometimes growth actually means more responsibility. What if somebody here today or listening experiences a moment where they realize, you know what, this isn't what I thought it would be. I kind of want to get out. And what would you say is it better to try to sell your business at that point or scale down? Or how do you know your business can be sold? And how do you know you have something that is sellable? You guys have anything you can comment on that?
So I was telling my employees for years, if you don't like what you do for a living, leave, quit, right? And then came a time when I did not like my business anymore. And I would tell them this, and I would feel like a hypocrite. Like I'm telling them, do things that you're passionate about, but I just don't care about construction anymore. I'm just tired of it. Tired of that. Not tired of running a business, tired of that particular line of work, industry. And so, yeah, we basically came to the realization we have to sell the business. And we asked, we had 3 business partners. Andre was one of them. And we all agreed that, we don't have the passion for the industry between 3 of us. Let's sell the company. I would say, ideally, you want to sell the business in the optimum time. You prepared, so financials for the past 3 years are the best and so on. But sometimes it's best to just let things go, maybe at less optimum time, because if your heart is not there, sometimes you can really run things into the ground. The very thing that you've built, you're going to personally destroy if your heart is not there anymore. So just find a way, sell it, hire a mergers and acquisitions company to help you through the process. They would really help you prepare the business right, but get out as fast as you can. That would be my advice.
I'll speak to another side of this. As we know statistically, I think 80% of businesses fail within their first year of starting. And I think today someone talked about, this excitement, man, I'm going to go in and start the business and work for myself, not knowing the 80, hour weeks or whatever. And because so many businesses fail, this creates so much tension. This could create tension because of finances in your marriage, right? A lot of times if you're in partnership with your friend or your relative, that was in my case, the relationship goes down the drain, if you will. So realizing, right, if you're digging yourself into the hole, realizing if you can't go any further, get out, I guess, quickest, and it's okay to fail, right? Matt, you alluded to it earlier, right? I think I've failed in 6 businesses before I've hit one, right? So it's okay to fail. Right? Some of the businesses was minimal investment. Some of the businesses were, more investment. But it's okay to fail. If you're failing in something, listen, do it prayerfully. Right? Pray, consult, pros and cons, and then wait on God. Yeah.
All right. Last financial question. Should your company have a savings account?
Yes.
And how much? How much?
Yes, you should have a savings account. I think how much, to put an absolute number on it, I think is hard because people are in different places in their business. I think you're always looking at you know, how long can you stay afloat if everything were to fall out today? You know, what are your responsibilities? If you've got hundreds of employees versus you're a solopreneur, those are very different responsibilities and obligations that you have for the people. So I don't think there's a one size fits all, but I would say this: what will hedge against crisis more than anything is having cash on hand. Because when you have cash, it takes the pressure off. Mistakes love a rushed decision. And so if you are rushed, you will make more mistakes, and having cash prevents you from making stupid decisions just because you feel under pressure. And so you've got to figure out what that means based on your specific business context. My opinion is more businesses would be well served by having more cash on hand, particularly if they're in a business that has a lot of ups and downs.
I'll add 3 to 6 months worth of expenses is a good measure for the savings account if possible. I'll mention another side to this, especially for men in business. For us, taking a risk, we're facing the bull, facing the lion, facing the music. Boy. My suggestion when I consult with someone who's starting the business, or in the beginning of the business, they're going and head down and they're facing the challenges. And for the man, it's just we're gonna figure it out. For the wife or for the female in a relationship, these type of things, not having enough finances, the whole security thing is very challenging. So what I recommend is this: have a savings account personally, right? And you can't touch it, right? You can't touch it for the business, right? It's no, you can't touch it for payroll. Have it, personal savings account. So your wife, right? If you're a man here, can feel the security, even though, and Vito said, I'm guilty of this, sharing, the struggles in the business with my wife, and my wife is here. That's very important. But personal savings account. 3 to 6 months of worth of expenses personally, right? And you can't touch it for payroll.
What do you spend the savings on? When is it time to spend savings? I know you said not payroll, but let's say, a business wants to have their cash reserves, they're growing, they're setting aside 5, 10%, or even 3%, 1% in a savings, right? If your business has ups and downs, you want to have a little more. Now, let's say you have a cushion, you have 3 to 6 months expenses. How do you know it's time to use the savings? Does the savings keep growing as your business grows? Or can you use it for investments? Do you use it for opportunities? What would you say?
Okay. So, I mean, the best way to relate to this is personal savings. When you have sort of an untouchable reserve for your home, to give that comfort level to your family. So as your business oscillates, your family is not impacted at all. So whatever the pressures, so they're not translated into the family financial misfortune. I would say that reserve cannot be touched for anything. I mean, it's that rainy day fund that is really specifically not to be invested into anything. It's cash reserves. Once you get beyond that, then you decide whether 3 months or 6 months. 6 months is a good rule, not always practical for a lot of businesses. That's a lot of funds just sitting on the side, but at least 3 months. And anything beyond that, you invest into other things, into projects, into marketing and whatnot.
I can add, I remember in the beginning when we were just starting, we had some money in the savings account. I remember, and that wasn't really usual for us because we've been living paycheck to paycheck. Anyway, besides the point. My wife calls me. She's like, "Hey, my car broke down. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is gonna cost us so much money." I go, "How much?" "Well, probably $800." I go, "Well, we have $2,000 in the savings account. What are you worrying about?" She goes, "Oh, right." So, because we're just used to that. One more thing I'll say about finances for the business. A lot of times we go to our Savior, line of credit, right? When cash flow is a problem. That was supposed to be a joke. Anyway, here's what I'll say. Something that I've heard early on in the business is this. For those of you that do not have a line of credit in your business right now, my suggestion, this was what suggested to me, is get the money when you don't need it. Remember, get the money when you do not need it. Right? When everything is fine financially, go to the bank and negotiate with them. Say, hey, I'm looking for a line of credit. Well, why? I don't know. I'm going to expand the business. Here's the business plan, whatever. Right? And ask for a lot. They'll negotiate down. Right? But ask for the money when there's money in the bank account, when you're doing well. Right? When you do not need the money, that's when you get the money.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to go back to that very first thing I asked about work and marriage and relationships. And I love, Alex, that you kind of transitioned into that personal, expressing the difference between, okay, your business can have a savings, but then how about personally? How is my family going to feel safe? And I hear it a lot from women, and then this kind of goes back to the first thing we talked about. Hey, you're going into business and you don't expect it's going to be the 80 hours. But speak into that a little bit. Where's the line, and how long should a person do the 80-hour work weeks until they can pull off? Or how do you as businessmen draw the line and be present at home in your relationships with your family members and still be passionate and excited about your work? And how do you balance those two? And what can you tell the rest of us?
I jumped in on this one on our last conference in Philadelphia, so I'm going to say it again. I have a very easy solution. Hire your whole family to work with you in the office. So my wife does the accounting. She's the bookkeeper.
So your finances are fine.
Thanks.
Then. Yeah.
We don't need to discuss them when we get home.
My account, the business account, it's all together.
That's right. So, I mean, and we just started that way. And she kind of learned the business with me, right? So we started when it was just me and her, right? So we built on, and then but I also I was fortunate to start the business when I was young. So the kids kind of grew up together in the business. So my daughter currently is working for me. She's been working for Scopus for 5 years. She's our growth marketing manager, and she brings a lot of great new ideas and kind of drives. She's positioned to take the business over potentially. So she's there every day, and they're walking into my office. We're eating lunch together. Our youngest one cleans the office every weekend. Everybody knows her. So spending time. But what I personally learned and kind of had a rule for myself is do not take the office home, right? So I have a very nice business office. I keep my computer at work. I come home. I do not have a business office set up at home. I am home. I am with the family. So for me, that's a personal rule that's kind of helped me separate that from work and family.
Yeah, it's a hard question because it doesn't lend itself to an easy answer. I used to work 80-hour weeks or more and never be home. If I come home at 9 or 10 p.m., that's a good day. That's an early day, part-time. And my solution, I came to a realization, is that I have to work smarter, not harder. Okay, maybe there's a short season in your life when that's necessary. Your business is going through crisis, and your wife, your spouse can understand the short season. Okay, it's just you do what's necessary. I bless you. My wife is great at that. She builds me up all the time, especially when I fail. She's like, "No, you're a winner. You're amazing. Anyway." But if that becomes your lifestyle, if you're working 80 hours after 15 years in business, you really have not learned how to delegate. You have not learned how to work with the team. You really have not. You're jumping at every opportunity possible. You're jumping at every shiny object. You're not disciplined with your life. So I think for a season it's okay, and sometimes you have to do it. But as a rule, you work as little as possible. And I'm actually opposite from Andre. I love working from home. I actually get more work done from home than I do at the office. At the office, it's always like you got a minute, and then you basically got to go home to do the work. I love working from home, and so that's been my solution.
I think it goes down to letting go, right? Bottom line, everybody, all of us business entrepreneurs have to admit that nobody is going to do our job as good as we are. We just have to realize it. We just have to face it. Okay. So, but if we're trying to do it every time because we know that nobody else is going to do it as good, we're not going to grow. We just have to let go and understand that there's going to be mistakes made. Okay. But allow the person to make that mistake. How are they going to learn if you're going to jump in and fix it for them, right? So for me, that was the biggest thing is, okay, it is going to cost the company a little money here because they made a mistake. They ordered something wrong. We specified, we detailed something wrong. But guess what? They're not going to do it again next time because they're going to learn from their mistakes. So letting go, letting them learn, let them fall, let them get up so that you can have more time for yourself. Don't try to fix everything.
Yeah, and also, I just want to say, give yourself a very ambitious goal. For example, can I run my business on 5 hours a week? Okay, can I really run this business only spending 5 hours a week dedicated to working in the business? And if I can't, okay, how about 20 hours a week? Can you run your business? And if you're doing 8-hour weeks, think of that. Okay, what can I do to spend as little time as possible on this thing called making money, and more time on serving people, on helping other people, on doing ministry work and whatnot. My goal has been for many years, I want to get down to 5 hours a week. And that was part of the reason why I decided to sell the business. It was sucking a lot of time and changing into a business that I can have more passive income that's maybe more stable and not rapidly growing, but it's allowing me to really shrink my involvement into business operations.
Thank you for sharing that. Really good. I read in a book once, one man, what he did is when he worked in another state and would drive home. So what he made a rule for himself was when I cross the border from this state into this state, that's my line that I'm leaving work there. For someone else who might work at home, might have to create that as their office space or something else where they can say, you know what, each day has enough worries of its own, so I'm just going to draw the line on that today and we'll deal with it tomorrow. It could be coming into the doorstep of your home, just stopping for a moment and saying, okay, take a deep breath. All right, how do I need to be present at home right now? And coming in with that enthusiasm and coming in with the person you want to be at home and being able to just pause what's happening at work. But I want to go ahead and transition and open up the floor for questions. So I hope you guys made some notes. I hope you wrote something down. This is a great opportunity to ask something, maybe personal question, business, marketing, personnel. Go ahead, raise your hand and we can take some questions. So we'll give it a minute. If you guys don't have any questions, that means we did a great job. We answered them all, right?
We're confused there.
Okay, we have...
These guys have no idea what they're talking about. I'm not asking them anything.
Sorry, I'm not used to the microphone. So one of the things that I rarely see anyone talk about when they're talking about business is all of those nitty-gritty things, like the internal organs of the structure of it, like the taxes, the HR. Where do you find that kind of information, like tax codes, stuff, the really intricate homework that I rarely see people talking about? Where do we get those resources so we can learn how to, what things to watch out for, what mistakes not to make, with paperwork and whatnot? Where do I get lawyers? What happens when I get sued? How do I go through litigation? What happens when I get audited? Just things like that nature.
So in the beginning, I hired this CPA by recommendation from anyway. And I was just busy in the business. I was building a business. Like I trusted the person to do the things and correctly. And granted, I had no clue about taxes, filing local taxes in my township, even like all of these little things, major things. But a year later, we started receiving letters from our friends in IRS, and I realized that I have a problem on my hands. And I went out and hired a very expensive CPA. And things are not smooth, and I think it's recommended to look into changing your CPA every 3 to 5 years, just because of, and we're facing this dynamic now. We've been with the CPA for 4 years. We're like, oh, we're on the 5th red flag. They're small, minor, but still red flags, right? So we've learned that lesson. And I think HR, and maybe you guys can speak to attorneys or whatever, it's such an easy thing nowadays to have access to just even online HR companies and things like that. My CPA has a HR firm inside that we just consult them if need be. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say don't get lost in the weeds. A lot of us, we try to be like, do our own taxes and read all the laws ourselves. And especially if you're working in multiple states, we worked in 35 states. You know, there's 6,000 nexus jurisdictions for sales taxes in the United States. You hire, or close to 6,000, something like that. You hire professionals. You know, it takes many years to become a lawyer or a doctor, or takes specialized training to become a CPA. Don't try to gain expertise in all these areas. Hire the professionals to help you with that. So you don't have to. I mean, you get leverage their knowledge.
Sure, I can jump in as well. One thing that definitely not, don't try to be an HR manager. Don't try to be an attorney. Those are the things that I wish I learned earlier in my business, because I used to do all of that, right? And then the result of that, you have staff turnover, you have all of that, because you are not there for the staff to be there, to coach, to check in. So the moment we hired a third-party HR company that is weekly meeting with every employee, checking in on their growth plans, on their target, on their skills, on what they want to be, what they're happy with, everything, that changed the dynamic and growth of the business completely. I don't have to be the HR expert. I have no time to be the HR expert. And you know what? I don't have to be the bad guy anymore, right? That's the biggest win, is having a lot of those structures now. Now you can be a respected business owner. You're not having some of those disciplinary, difficult conversations weekly, right? So that was a big thing. Join your local chamber. Like when we joined our local chamber, like what is their HR policy? Can we grab those templates? Can we buy those templates? Can we, adapt them? There's a lot of resources from your local chamber that could help with that.
How long have you guys been in the business, each one of you?
This coming up July is going to be our 15-year anniversary. I started Scopus.
This business, we just celebrated 10.
I mean, I've been running multiple companies. I was last time I was employed by somebody was in 2005, so 19 years.
I've done a couple different things, but in this business particularly, only about a year and a half. So I'm on the newer side in this particular venture.
Any other questions, you guys?
Yeah, so my question is related to acquisition. So the gentleman's between Matt and Alex. What's your name? Yeah.
Andre, yes.
Andre, awesome. So my question is for you. You said that you acquired a consulting firm to just kind of speed things up.
That's correct.
Awesome. Have you acquired any other businesses, or any of you do you guys have experience in acquisitions?
Yeah, so that was actually the first business we acquired. I mean, we started up other businesses as opportunities came up, but for that was the individual that company. She was looking to retire. I actually helped her start her business 10 years prior, so it was really seamless. Just like, listen, you helped me. You're the first person I'm going to talk to. Let's sit down. Here's the books. She prepared everything, opened it up completely, showed her revenue. We created a strategy, pricing strategy. Okay, for 3 years, you're still going to stay on. If it hits these marks, you're going to get these payments. If you exceed, we're going to pay you more. But through that time, what we did is we hired another executive chef to work alongside with her, shadow, attend all the meetings, learn the processes, take over the clientele, go to the conferences, shows. So I kind of transition all that knowledge and industry. And what we brought, because I'm a technology, geek. I love technology. So for us, it was like we immediately infused everything. So like the company didn't have a CRM. Well, now they have a CRM, right? So we're boosting that company, and we were able to actually double the revenue in the first year of acquisition. So just being able to infuse the new ideas and blood and kind of resources into that company. So that's my personal. It's a small. I just go ahead and say it. It was like a $500K acquisition, so it wasn't anything major. One-person company, but it definitely gave us a boost versus reinventing all those tools from scratch.
And I'll just add quickly from this, like my experience from selling the company. I think for the buyer, just like real estate, get yourself an agent, a buyer broker, or a mergers and acquisition company. They'll really, if you're looking for any like a specific business, they'll give you exposure to the market and really help you guide through it, and you'll know more businesses for sale.
So my question is talking about the sale of a business. What are some important points that you should be gathering or preparing if you want to create an exit strategy for your business? What would that be?
I would love to speak to that. And when I have my slide about process mapping, actually get that QR code and download that presentation, because I think what maybe a lot of us entrepreneurs are forgetting is when we build businesses, we think like, oh, wow, now I got all these projects and I can sell the business. But what if I'm acquired in the business? What am I acquiring, right? Am I acquiring you? How long are you going to be around? And how do I get what you know from your head down into the business? Because if you leave, or if the car hits you tomorrow, what am I left with, right? So what did I just acquire? So what actually we're doing, myself, I'm planning an exit strategy myself, thanks to Alex's Lifeline exercise that he took me through a last retreat. And I'm looking at, and I'm realizing, hey, I potentially want to exit out of the business that I currently operate 5 years down the road. So I got to start thinking about how I'm going to do that. So that's where we're taking our company on a business. There's an official term, BPMN, business process mapping and notation. Google it. That's actually every successful business out there has that mapped out. And that's what, if I'm acquiring a business, I'm looking at that first, is how does your business do business? What are the processes? How do you get business? How do you get clientele? How do you repeat the results, right? So that's what we're taking our company through right now and mapping out everything from A to Z. If a client calls or fills out a form on our website, what is that process and how do we convert them to a client? How do we execute the project? How we close it out? And how we upsell everything from A to B. So that's very critical.
I would also want to add that somebody called me a few years back. He has a small shop with 2 employees, and I knew him for many, many, many years. We're like a family friend, so I could tell him truthfully things. And he said, "Hey, I want to sell my business. What do you think my business is worth?" And I said, "Let me ask you this question. If you left for 3 months right now, will your business function?" He said, "No way." They would not last a day without me. I said, you don't have a business to sell. You are self-employed with a few helpers. A business needs to be organized in such a way that if you were not around, it could still function without you. Then you have a product to sell, because the buyers who want to buy, they want to get a return on investment. A lot of buyers are equity firms. What they're looking for is, do you have management structure? Who's your CEO? Who's your president? That's not you, the owner. Because if you're the CEO and president and you're running everything, and everything depends on you, I mean, you can't. Then they have to buy the business with you. You have to sell yourself with the business. So this is part of what Andre is talking about. You have to prepare by slowly, step by step, getting yourself stepping out of running the business day by day to a point where you have another CEO, you have another president, you have the management team running your business, and you're the owner. Then you have a very good product to sell, assuming it's profitable.
So good. Thank you. Any last questions? Somebody? All right. Well, you guys, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And we are going to head this over to Alex. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Amazing. Appreciate it.